She's relentless, a fierce adversary of Venezuela's leftist government. Congresswoman Maria Corina Machado leads a hardline wing of the opposition and is either admired or loathed like few Venezuelan politicians. Machado is a fierce anti-communist who never tires of denouncing Cuba's strong influence in the government. Even her detractors could see she's gutsy. Machado scored points when she confronted deceased President Hugo Chávez during a State of the Nation address.
Hace algunos minutos el presidente Hugo Chávez tuvo un cara a cara con la precandidata presidencial opositora María Corina Machado.
Dígale la verdad a Venezuela.
Por favor.
¿Cómo puede usted hablar de que respeta al sector privado en Venezuela cuando se ha dedicado a expropiar, que es robar? Es el momento de una nueva Venezuela. Sí, acepte el debate, presidente.
Gane usted las primarias. Es lo primero que tiene que hacer, porque está fuera de ranking para debatir conmigo.
When students began protesting against violence and shortages, Machado called for all Venezuelans to take to the streets to force out Chávez's democratically elected successor, Nicolás Maduro. Now there are some opposition voices saying that the demonstrations are hurting the country, while others question their agenda.
Venezuela has charged opposition leader Maria Corina Machado with plotting to kill President Maduro. Prosecutors have claimed a series of emails revealed the alleged assassination plot, but at least one cyber expert is reported to have found they were faked.
Machado denied the charges, accusing instead the government of breaking its word.
Venezuela's top court upheld a 15-year ban on opposition leader Maria Corina Machado holding public office. President Nicolás Maduro's government announced this ban in June, days after she officially declared her presidential candidacy.
How does it feel to be perhaps the most vilified person in this country?
You've just been called by the President of the National Assembly a fascist assassin.
Every single person that dares to speak out, every single person that defends the truth is called that way, but that doesn't work anymore. This is a matter of will. Every single person you see in the street now is a volunteer, and we will fight for a transition to democracy. We have the support of a majority of the population. And I ask you all that listen to us right now, how would you call a regime that represses, that censors the press, that tortures innocent students that are being detained, that kills people in the streets? How do you call that regime? It is a dictatorship.
Casi el 90% de los venezolanos ya decimos a voz en cuello que el cambio es impostergable y que vamos a hacer lo que haya que hacer para hacerlo realidad. El bien siempre triunfa. Dios va de nuestra mano. Venezuela será libre. Hasta el final, Yaracuy. Hasta el final. ¡Viva Venezuela libre!
Maria Corina Machado joins me now. I think it's important to clarify here. You are not stepping aside despite the rule from the court.
I will compete and defeat Nicolás Maduro. Nicolás Maduro knows that running against me means he will lose.
Clearly now, this is about regime change, isn't it?
It's about freedom. It's about democracy. It's about human dignity. It's about sovereignty. It's about human values and our right to live in freedom and democracy. It's about the truth.
Please welcome the daughter of the 2024 Global Courage Award for Truth recipient, Ana Corina Sosa. Démosle la bienvenida a la hija de la ganadora del premio al Coraje Global 2024 para la Verdad, Ana Corina Sosa.
Good evening, distinguished guests, Your Eminence, and members of the Washington O'Hee Day Foundation. My name is Corina Sosa Machado, and it is an honor to stand before you today and accept the Global Courage Award on behalf of my mother, Maria Corina Machado. It is my mother who should be standing here tonight accepting this esteemed recognition, but she's been barred from leaving Venezuela for over a decade. In our country, the fight for freedom comes at an unimaginable cost. My mother's courage and commitment to defending truth have shaped not just my life, but the life of millions of Venezuelans. I remember like it was yesterday, the night before my mother was ordered to the prosecutor's office in Venezuela, unjustly accused for conspiracy and treason by the Chavista regime. My mother was facing a 12-year prison sentence, and I was only 13 years old. That night, as I was preparing for school the next morning, my mother pulled up a chair beside me and held my hand and told me that she was going to turn herself in. And I knew very well the level of corruption she would encounter in the prosecution and the grave risks she would face. My mother looked me in the eyes that night and told me she didn't know when we were going to see each other again. And in her absence, I had to step up and take her place and protect my two younger brothers, Ricardo and Enrique. And that was, frankly, the first time that I could witness my mother, how she wasn't able to reassure me that everything was going to be okay. But the courage with which she spoke that night, when she explained why she was doing it, that she was doing it for my future, the future of my brothers, and the future of my country. It is in those moments that I understood that she stood for something far greater than herself, my brothers, or I. She was willing to sacrifice her own freedom for the pursuit of freedom of all Venezuelans. If there is one thing that I've learned from my mother, is that courage and truth are our most powerful weapons in the disarmament of evil in this world. That truth is not a tool merely to be used when it's convenient, non-controversial, or safe, but rather truth is of most importance in the darkest of times, when nobody else dares to speak it, when doing so means alienating yourself from your allies and even risking your own life. Truth has been my mother's constant companion throughout her career and her entire life. My mother called the Venezuelan regime a dictatorship and a mafia state when nobody else dared to say it. And for that, she was called an extremist. My mother stood up in the National Assembly, as you saw, and berated Hugo Chavez, telling him that the expropriations of Venezuelan businesses was theft, and for that she was called a radical. My mother spoke to the people of Venezuela about the dignity of hard work in a country filled with words of communism and government handouts, and for that she was called crazy. Maria Corina Machado has not been intimidated by the constant threats on her life and the safety of my family. She stood firm in the National Assembly when she was brutally assaulted and later hospitalized. And she did not change course when she stood alone for many years without allies. What is unfolding today in Venezuela is unbelievable in many ways. There's hundreds and thousands of people filling the streets in every corner of my country, trying to get a glimpse of my mother and hearing Maria Corina Machado's speech. It is truly a phenomenon we have never encountered before. The historical turnout in the opposition's presidential primaries in October seemed unimaginable, despite all the obstacles that the government imposed. People still showed up. Yet I'm not the slightest bit surprised. Venezuelans have been living under tyranny for decades, marked by humiliation, stripped of freedom and dignity, being fed lies and divisive rhetoric of hatred. And we have said enough, enough. Maria Corina Machado speaks of an existential fight that is much greater than any presidential election. She appeals to the free individual, the human dignity, and the reunification of families. She is replacing humiliation for dignity, division for unity, and suppression for hope. Guided by her courage and truth, she has restored hope to millions of Venezuelan families that have been separated by this crisis, allowing them to envision that day when their children are able to return home once again in Venezuela. Our country is facing a moment of reckoning, and Maria Corina Machado is our beacon of hope. It takes courage. It takes extraordinary courage to lead a country to freedom. And as a Venezuelan and her daughter, I will always admire her for that. Gracias.